I'm very excited to be joined by Gordon Hester. Many of you know him. For those of you who don't, he is a wealth of knowledge about this industry. He's been on executive teams, on board of directors. He's been a consultant, a distributor out in the field with over 35 years of experience. We're very happy to hear some of his insights about hybrid models and the shift that we're seeing and what's working and what's not working. So, welcome, Gordon. Thank you for being here with us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right.
It's certainly a popular topic these days.
It is. It
That is
is.
for
I know
sure.
you and I both get all these questions all the time from clients, from new companies that are launching. So we're very excited to kick it off. Now, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself. You can ask the questions real time. We want this to be very conversational, and we want to make sure that you walk away with the answers and the information that you need in order to make the best decisions for your group. So interrupt if you've got questions, or if you want, there is a chat. Dan's going to be monitoring the chat for us so that if anything gets asked there, he can either voice the question or just answer it for you right there. So with that, I'd say let's get started, Gordon, and I will let you kick us off.
Yeah, first I want to start off. I was looking at the list and see two big legends on here. One is John Fleming. So I want to call out John to say hi. For those of you that don't know John Fleming, I would tell you, you don't know direct selling and network marketing. John is a legend. He now runs the Ultimate Gig. So he's very much involved in compensation and all things related to the gig world. So good to have him on. And of course, the one and only Garrett McGrath. Garrett is the founder and president of the ANMP, also the CEO of Business from Home. So it's good to have both of them on and everybody else. So uh, if you're on this call, it is likely because of one of these reasons. So if you kind of think about it, when I'm having conversations about comp plans, or I'm seeing other people, other consultants that I work with, or even the tech team, these are the things I tend to see. So when sales decline and revenue drops, you get into a situation where you're kind of now eroding into profitability. And these two things are the core things. So I always tell people at the end of the day, there is no path to stability without growth. And it's really hard to run a long-term company that isn't profitable. So a lot of what's driving the comp plan, like these are the things we're seeing, but it's really the changing marketplace, the competition, all these other factors. And, when companies get into this, I wrote a big article called Mastering Momentum for DSN on this. And what happens is they go into right sizing. So, oh my gosh, we got to cut down expenses, and it starts with staff. And then it finally finds its way over to commissions. And I would say, from what I'm seeing right now, a lot of those conversations are more with the legacy companies who over time have inherited, like leaders go through stages. They go from performance to management to, like, I call it lifestyle mode. And these leaders, some are paid millions and millions of dollars a year. And listen, they earned it. These companies wouldn't exist without them. But there is a reality. If sales are declining and you don't have profitability and you don't have any other place to cut, this has become a big reason we are starting to see modifications in comp plans. And of course, that also includes reallocation of commissions. So one of the trends we're seeing is commissions are moving more to the front end and reducing on the override side of things, especially as go back to about 2016 when we really got more customer centric, when we really got into the trenches about customer acquisition and customer retention. And if you think about it, of course that matters, because at the end of the day, every sale a company has is because somebody's buying a product or service. So the stronger that is, the better. We have seen a number of companies, legacy companies, move away from multi-tiered models. Rodan and Fields, 31 Gifts, Bodie, Beachbody, and more. And I would say the reason for this was similar to the points I covered before, but also these were companies that had a heavy presence of equity people running them. So we have seen over the last couple of years, there was a big interest in equity companies or hedge fund companies coming in, and they pretty much prove that they don't understand our channel, and anybody that is using them to run the channel is probably having some big challenges. So what they end up doing is they end up shifting to an affiliate model. Oh, where'd that go? Here we go.
Sorry
They
about
ended
that.
up
We're back.
moving to an affiliate model. And the other big factor with that is when we talk about a decline in sales and a loss of profitability, there's one other factor. So if you know accounting, on a profit and loss, you have income and expenses, and we call that cash on cash or EBITDA, but below that is interest. So you can have a company who is EBITDA positive, but has so much debt that it's eating into cash flow. I mean, I know companies that are losing millions of dollars a month simply because the debt is so high. So that was another common factor. And I would say, and we'll talk more about this, there's definitely been a shifting focus to more the customer side and kind of, especially in the last 10 years. I'll talk about that a little bit more. So next slide. Okay, so if you really look at the different compensation models that exist, there's single level and multi-level, as I call them, multi-tiered. So single levels include things like the influencer market, and I'll show you in a little bit kind of what the payouts. The affiliates are kind of, when I think of affiliate, I think of Uber, I think of Amazon. These companies that bring in independent contractor entrepreneurs, which, by the way, all these have. That is the common ground. It's a network of independent contractors marketing products and services for companies. So affiliates really focus on the customer acquisition, the customer retention. You're seeing the payouts are a little bit lower, but now you're seeing scaled payouts, like they increase as you do more volume. There's even people doing differential payouts in that. Um, Now, I will say this. I am not aware of any situation where a network marketing company has moved to an affiliate model that didn't experience a relatively large drop in sales. And if you want to see what that looks like, go look at the financials for Beachbody. You're talking about within the first 2 quarters, their sales were down over 50%. So if you're going to make that change to cut commissions, you have to factor in the other side of that. And then enhanced affiliate is, I'd say it's like a network marketing program in that, think about if I had an affiliate program, if I was Uber and I could recruit one Uber driver. So it's like a 2-level plan in a sense. So traditional MLM, we all know that's what we've been living with for decades and decades. Now what we're seeing is the birth of a hybrid affiliate. And a hybrid affiliate pays out a lower percentage of commissions to sales, but it also shifts more money to the front end and it reduces overrides to the back end. So this is that combination of companies saying, gosh, we really need to be more customer centric. We really need to build a stronger base there. But at the end of the day, we don't want to lose our leaders. We just have to pay them differently. So you're going to find this term continuing to get a lot of traction in the future just for those reasons. So next slide, please. So this graph to me has always been the foundation of how I ever build anything, whether it was in the field or working at a C-level position. So I generally ask the question, what determines the size and success of any company, any direct selling company? And the answer is it's critical mass. So if you think about it, the more loyal customers I have, the stronger my business is. The more engaged leadership I have, the stronger our business is. And when you have engaged critical mass and it's building, that's how you build a massive company. When you don't focus on things the right way, you might create engagement, but it tends to fall off. So we see a pretty big dropout of customers unless there's programs working on retention. Like in nutrition, you might see a 50% drop between the first and second order. And then on the field side, nobody will ever convince me that direct selling isn't a momentum business. So when momentum slows down, then they start questioning, right company, why aren't things better? And so, you look at companies that are growing today. So I'll use something like Beyond Beauty Club, Make Wellness, Bravenly. These are all, they have really high network marketing payouts, but they're building a strong base. And, Make Wellness broke 100 million their first year. Beyond Beauty Club's growing double digits every month. Bravenly has went from startup to about, I think they broke 100,000 last year and on pace, or 100 million last year and on pace to do 200 million. And by the way, that's just in US. They haven't even expanded. So when people tell me network marketing's dead, I'm like, you might want to go look at these companies because it's not dead for them and they all have high payouts. And that's an important thing to stress here. You can have high payouts if you don't have a lot of money going out to legacy leaders that aren't performing, or you run a really tight operation. So, operations being like I look at AI as an example, it's changing operational efficiency, which allows you to pay more commissions, invest more back into the business. So, if you look at this
Jordan,
and think of
quick
it,
question.
yes,
You mentioned some of these like Bravenly and Make Wellness that,
yep.
have kind of hit the ground running. And I think from my own observations, it can be a bit easier for these newer companies to be able to kind of get it right the first time, right? And choose from the slide before this which of the models works. But for those that may be on the call that have an established business, would you say it's harder for an existing company to start adopting some of these recommended strategies, or is it just that they need to do it in a different way?
So obviously, the legacy problem doesn't exist for newer companies.
Right.
But anyone that you would talk to, if you had an honest conversation, would tell you 10 years from now, it's probably going to be something we have to address. But you're talking about companies that have, so I would say standard payout in our industry now is around 35%. These are companies that are 45, upwards of 55%, and they're tangible products. So that tells you a lot about how different they are. But even one of those who I'm working with, being a big comp plan project with them, is having conversations already about we need to pull back the commission structure a little bit. And, I'm the guy that does all the research, but they're like, you need to come in and help us sell our comp plan and why it's better than other things in the industry. So I had to benchmark all that and do all that. But the quick answer is yes, it's harder because you're changing something versus building from scratch. And this is especially true when you lose momentum because
Yes.
timing matters, and it's always been the eternal debate: when's the best time to change a comp plan? Is it when you have momentum or when you've lost momentum? I think it's a little easier to make adjustments when you have momentum, but not major adjustments. Like if you have good sales momentum and you're a company and then all of a sudden you're like, we're paying out 50%, we need to go down to 30%, and here's how we're going to do it. Yeah, you're going to have a lot of pushback because without support of the field, they need to be involved and they need to understand why it serves them. So what I always tell leaders when I'm dealing with this is you're looking at everything as a loss instead of looking at it as an investment, because when you make these changes, you're going to stabilize the base and that's going to make your income more stable over time. It may take more time to build up, but if you don't, they fight in the. I say they play in the shadows. They're always talking behind things, and this is the way. But so if you look at this as a house, the foundation of the house is customers by far. The FTC would tell you a customer is somebody that isn't a distributor. I think that's a ridiculous argument. I don't think it will ever stand up. So I think if somebody's buying your product ongoing, a loyal customer is step number one. A loyal viral customer is the path to retailing to recruiting. So those things become, and then from there you get your affiliates, your single level people that are selling. And this is by far the largest percentage of the database of your distributor base. In this study I showed, it was a massive percentage, but here's the crazy thing: highest percentage, lowest pay. And then when you go up, because in this study, I broke it down to levels 1, 2, 3, and 4 and above. The level 4 and above, it was 0.17% of people got there, and their income was like 480,000 a year average, where your annual income for that smaller group was roughly $600. So there's that imbalance, and that's why they're trying to move more money to the front end. I don't know if Dan's on the call, but I read something he wrote years ago. I had the pleasure of working with Dan Jensen. If you don't know Dan, he is the all-knowing guru of comp plans. And he talked about this thing called golden handcuffs. So the question was, how much money does it take to keep somebody in? And the answer was $300 to $500. So if you have a good competitive affiliate model, a retail model, you can have people make meaningful money. And like for some of us, like I'm not really excited about making another $300 to $500 at this stage of my life. But for most people, it's an absolute game changer. And think about it this way, and this is the way I always teach it. We talk about freedom, everybody wanting freedom. The problem is we talk about it in the extreme. Do what I want when I want. The reality is freedom's just detaching from some form of suffering. If I'm signing up as a distributor and I can't make a car payment, don't think that $300 a month doesn't change my life. And that's the way you have to kind of build a journey with somebody, a series of small wins that make a difference in their life. So the stronger, so you get the affiliates, and then you get the small business builders, the micro entrepreneurs. They tend to be your junior leaders. They lead into your junior leaders. So they will have a strong customer base, and they will also have a small team. Now, I did a study for one company just to give you some perspective. That company, I looked at their compensation plan and when did somebody make $300 to $500 a month? And it was the fourth level of their plan, and about 1% of the people got there. And what was shocking to me is, so I wanted to look at what I would call the central tendency data. So there was many making, the average was 354. I still remember the numbers. There was as many making under 100 as were making over 800. And I'm like, why is there such a variance? And the reason was the people over 800 were building a lower customer base and a small team doing the same. So it goes back to this, in my opinion, one of the most important things on this slide, the base. So the base is your customers, your affiliates, and your micro entrepreneurs. And regardless of what company you look at, they will generally represent between 70 to 96% of sales, customer acquisition, and recruiting. So the simple fact is, when you build a comp plan, if your base isn't rewarded properly, then your leadership will erode. And you'll see that when you look at like people's income from highest paid to current pay level, and you'll see big drops in that. So where you see it growing is when the base grows, the leadership grows. And that's kind of the simple thing. So next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Go back 1 second.
Oops.
So once we get the base, you get these levels of leaders, and I break them out, and I should have done it by purpose. Junior leaders are building, senior leaders are managing, legacy leaders are enjoying lifestyle. They show up for meetings, they show up to motivate, they love to tell their story. They are also one of the biggest regulatory risks we have. So the FTC has shifted their focus away from anti-pyramid into income claims. And we've already had 2 distributors that have been hit by the FTC over income claims they were making. So, you always have to be careful about those stories, because in the FTC's eyes, if you're going to tell an extreme story, you have to have a disclosure with it. And so what I always tell people is don't focus on money, focus on impact. So if I'm making $1 million a month, I'm going to talk about how big my organization, the impact, how many customers benefit from it. So you just have to change the narrative around that just to be safe. Okay, next slide. So this is the commission structures. So as you can see, what pays the best? Traditional MLM. What's the problem? It's paying out too much. That's kind of the simple thing. The hybrid model is where we're really seeing a lot of movement. And as you can see, the payouts are still good compared to the affiliates, but and they have a competitive direct seller commission, so like a retail commission, but notice how different the overrides are. And this is that idea of we need to shift more money, we need to reduce payout, we need to shift more money to the front end, and we can't afford to pay as much out in leadership. And this is what we're seeing more and more of. As you can see with the affiliates, payouts aren't as good, but they tend to have good retail. The pure affiliates, like when I'm talking about an influencer, they might make 10 to 15%. But obviously, if you look at the independent contractor entrepreneurial world, the gig world, you will recognize we have more competition for business builders than we've ever had. And we have more competition for products than we've ever had. So that makes it a little bit tougher to kind of win the game. But the key is, as I said, aligning the model with your business goals, your marketing strategy, and really the value delivered to your customers and distributors. So next slide, please.
All right. This is one I wanted to jump in on, just based on some of the tips and information that Gordon has shared. When he talks about the payouts to the leaders versus the payouts to that midsection, your junior leaders, I think when it comes to the tools that you're using in your business, because that's what we do at ByDesign. We provide the tools that you need to run your business. And one of the most important things is knowing what's going on in your business, knowing what's going on with your comp plan. And so often we talk about this percentage payout. You heard Gordon say our average percentage payout is 35%. Some are creeping up toward 40 and 50% and still being successful. And that's a really great number to know. But for me, the beauty and the real insights lie just underneath that layer, right? It's important to know what that top line payout is, but more important, or maybe equally as important, is knowing where are the payouts going? Who is earning? Is the top of that infographic, your legacy leaders that are just enjoying life, if they're earning 80% of your payout, you've likely got a problem, right? You need to shift some of that back down, but you're not going to know that you have that problem if you're not monitoring exactly where the payouts are going. So look at it by rank. Some of the views that you can see here that we offer is like by rank, but also by bonus type. Bonus type is going to be a measure of the behaviors. Okay, so your rank is going to tell you who's earning on that scale from bottom to top, but the bonus types is going to tell you which behaviors are you rewarding the most. Are you paying out more for personal sales bonuses, or are you paying out more for downline overrides? Are you paying enough for those micro entrepreneurs that are just getting ready to build out, and the bonuses that they're earning that are encouraging them to continue to share? Those are the behaviors that you're going to want to look for and compare that to your actual data. Every time you pay out, you should be looking at that payout and really analyzing it in detail. Who earned what? Why did they earn it? And does that align with the behaviors that I need to drive to sustainably grow my business over time? If not, that's when you need to tweak something. That should be your first indication. And that may be an indication well before you see a decline in sales or a loss in momentum. These can actually be the very early insights that can tell you that a tweak might be needed before you start seeing the consequences that he shared on that very first slide of why you might be here. Okay, so these are really ways to get ahead of that. Understand how your payouts are being managed, how you're paying out, who's getting them, and that can really help you to arrive at the ideal plan that works for your business.
Yeah, and Cassie, what I would add to that
Mm-hmm.
is, we live in a world where data matters.
Yeah.
And, I share a lot of macro data that I collect, but the reality is what I study is granular or micro data.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the things I love about ByDesign. You have that micro data.
Yeah.
And, I always tell people data does one of two things. It confirms what I know, teaches me something new, and both have value. Or, no, I'm sorry, or it confirms something I already know. So either one has value to me. So I think any platform you're using, and ByDesign has amazing analytics. These analytics matter, and you need to have
For
your
sure.
team know them granular, understand what they say, and then help build a plan for improving momentum and profitability. Okay,
Absolutely.
next slide.
This next one's mine too, Gordon. So,
All
going
yours.
back again to that scale from 1 to 8 with the leaders on the top and the base. One of the other important things, and this is something that hasn't always been the case. I think historically, whenever 20 years ago, when I was introduced to this ecosystem that we live in, there were customers and there were reps. Those were the two types of entities that you had. And today, that is not the case. You have Yes, you have distributors and customers, but you don't just have a single type of distributor. You've got the micro entrepreneurs who are just starting to share the business, who are really just gathering customers, versus the junior leaders who are really building out a team of more brand ambassadors and more affiliates. So, as we've kind of widened that scale of what the different entity types are, what's important when it comes to your tools is that the tools allow you to have a different experience for each one of those entities, right? So your brand ambassadors are going to want a different back office experience than your team builders will. Your retail customers are going to expect your VIP customers will expect different promotions, different product pricing and availability compared to retail customers. So now more than ever, I think in my experience, the ones that are shining, like Bravenly, you talked about earlier how in just 5 years they're at 100 million. This is something that they have done extremely well. They have very clearly defined entities. They have customers, they have VIP customers, they have ambassadors, they have influencers, then they've got the early leaders and then the true business builders. And for every single one of those entities, they have created the experience that appeals to that person. Communications are different between the different types of reps. Promotions are different, pricing, product availability, whether they even have a back office or not. You think about the team builders in the back office and the reporting and the downline tools that they need. Well, an affiliate doesn't need that. So an affiliate may not even need a back office. Maybe instead they have a simple mobile app. Maybe they don't have any tools and they literally are just sharing their cart. These are all differentiators that help to enhance the experience for every entity type on this scale from bottom to top. And I think now more than ever, your tools have to allow you to talk to them differently, pay them differently, offer different tools to them. That is really key. And if you've got a system that allows you to cater that experience, you're going to be very well served.
Yeah, just to add something to this, Cassie, every aspect of our business is changing. So, like if you were to look at e-commerce as an example, what's changing? The whole shopping flow, but also how much AI agents can do to answer questions. So, like if I had a product that had ashwagandha in it, I could ask it that and it would answer that question. So, a lot of it is being done to make the consumer experience better. There's been a big movement for a number of years now to Shopify. I would say, although there's still a movement there, it's slowing down. I know my son Connor, who runs a large tech company called Shape Tech Solutions, they're using a better e-commerce platform called Medusa. And when I was talking to him the other day, I'm like, what's the difference? Well, you can put your own payment gateways in there where Shopify controls all that. And I said, Connor, what's the cost difference? And he said about 1/25th of the cost.
Yeah.
I have another tech person I work with who just built a back office that works like a chat GBT. All the data lives somewhere in a private area. And then you ask a question like, what customers are coming due in the next 10 days? And it gives you that information. So every bit of this is changing. And that's a big part of what any company has to understand. The world's changing faster than it's ever changed. And you're either going to keep up with that or you're going to be left in the past. So yeah, so I would always say get a good tech person, a good AI person on your team because they'll be invaluable. So next slide, please.
Yep. And that's a great transition into change and evolution.
Yeah, so if I kind of try to compare like 2015 to 2025. So in 2015, very what I would call opportunity centric. So if you look at to the right, the focus was revenue. It was primarily driven by recruiting, building a team, ranking up, getting bonuses, overrides. So this was the opportunity centric. And it was really driven by recruitment, team size, and rank advancement. So what changed now is, and this started about in 2016 when the FTC was really pushing end consumers. We started to see a shift to the consumer side. And that looked different because the revenue was driven by acquiring customers, retaining customers, building repeat revenue on subscriptions, getting a referral using like tech links and referral links and those kind shared baskets and those kinds of things, and paying more direct commissions. And as we see this today, I think you're going to continue to see a consumer focus, and you're going to continue to see a shift to the pay plans, and it will all be come down to how do we make sure that we are getting performance or results from the money we're paying out. So next slide, please. So kind of the bottom lines is payouts are changing. They've shifted and they're going to continue to shift. What's driving this is certainly customer acquisition has become a bigger focus, harder with the competition. We continue to see regulatory pressure from the FTC and others. Primarily, that regulatory focus right now is on income claims, but also on the independent contractor status. Like California is a good example. There's a law firm out there called the Clarkson Group that is pretty much going after every company, arguing under California law, all your independent contractors should have been employees. So this fight's been going on in a number of states: Delaware, New Jersey, I think it was Mississippi, obviously California, and even at a federal level, the Department of Labor tried to pass a new ABC test that would have pretty much created a situation where all direct selling companies would have a lot more employees and a lot less reps. Obviously, social media has changed everything. I don't know how many of you in social media, but hopefully you do a better job of keeping up with it than I do. It's moving at warp speed. And like I saw something the other day talked about, the arrow. And, if you're a big successful business person, you need to be the tip of the arrow. In other words, know what you do well and get other people to do things. And I think that's always important for scalability. And that includes social media. I mean, my team is amazing at technology, AI, and social media. And that's why I can do things that I couldn't do myself. And then clearly, simplification has become the competitive advantage. And if you look at just somebody starting in direct selling, what's their profile? I call them the world of the entrepreneur. They generally come from middle class. There's generally a spouse that is a high to middle income earner. And then they come in, but they have the desire to be an entrepreneur, but they don't have the skills and the experience. So when they come in, it is critical to have a simple onboarding system that takes them from one step to another. And it's really easy because all you have to look is your retention data. So for instance, if I'm looking at somebody signs up as a distributor and they're not engaged, why is that? And you talk to them a lot of times, it's like, I couldn't even figure out where to start. It was just so complicated. And then they're not willing to put in that time. So I'll just go back to Bravenly as an example. I've seen their onboarding system, and one of the reasons they're successful is they can make it really simple for new people to grow and to learn and to move up their comp plan, on top of having really great products. So next slide, please.
One thing before I jump
Yeah.
to the next slide, just
Yep.
based on what you were just saying there, I think, yes, they've done a great job of making it easy to know what to do at each level. But because they have so many different ways for somebody to participate in the brain, they don't have a common problem that I've seen, and I've seen companies close because of this, which is all of your customers sign up to be reps because they want the discount and they want the product, right? So you end up losing that base. There are no customers left because everybody's joining to be a distributor in order to get that discount. And historically, I saw so many instances where that happened. But now, because you've got the ability to create the different experiences for every different type of entity, I think that has really helped prevent that quote unquote custo rep problem that we used to have, 10 to 15 years ago, which was all of our existing reps wanted to recruit their customers to be reps too. Well, then nobody had customers left. And they basically recruited their base away from them. And that's again because Bravenly has done such a great a great job of having those different entities. I think they've really overcome that common problem that we've experienced in the past in this industry.
Yeah. So what I would tell people is point of understanding. When I was building, and my partner and I built one of the top 10 largest distributorships, so it just reached over 130 million in commissions. And we always focused on churn because churn is a loss of engagement. And we always try to figure out how do we make it simple for people to stay engaged? A series of small victories. And this was really useful. But I will tell you, when we started people, it was be a product of the product. And you start building their belief about the business and the potential. And then the strategy that was the most successful in recruiting was find a friend. And I know that sounds pretty simple, but the reality is when you do something with a friend, it increases the engagement. And over and over, I have seen people that didn't go that route and they just became like lonely entrepreneurs that were lost. So if you can build into your onboarding, find a friend, who do you want to do the business with? I think that goes a long way. So next slide, please.
All right. Okay, so talking about the shift that we've seen, the social media influence and the way that distributors work today is very different than the way that they worked 10, 20 years ago. Not that the behaviors are different, but the way that they do it is very different. And also, one of the key takeaways that Gordon was talking about was the simplicity of all of it. It has to be easy to do. It has to be, but yet, while we see that the data is telling us that, we also see there are more and more apps coming onto the marketplace. There are more and more options for how you sell and where you sell. And what we've done here at ByDesign is we have partnered with our parent company on a mobile app called Wayru. And what Wayru does is it kind of brings together all of the different tools that are needed in a very simplistic way, offering them to your field. So your reps would have an app that allows them to share links to their site, full replication. They can see, what are the products that I'm selling well, where am I at in my rank, but also I can easily share marketing materials that are provided from the corporate office. And one of my favorite features is the point of sale feature, because now that we've got these smart devices in our hands, right, we're selling everywhere. Everywhere. Anytime we're talking to somebody, we're selling. We're selling the product, we're selling the business, we're selling ourselves, we're selling, selling, selling. And the point of sale features in a mobile app can really empower your field to have that conversation anywhere. If I'm, meeting somebody at my kid's baseball game, I can talk to them about the business, but also here, scan this QR code. It'll take you right to my shop so you can start shopping with me. Or, oh, you're interested in learning more about the business? Let me just shoot this over to you quickly in a text. Those are the types of tools that you need to make sure that your field has available to them on the go, because that's just the nature of how distributors are working today. And then the final thing I will say about Wayru is from a compliance perspective. As we're seeing this shift to more focus on customer sales and really the need for you on this call, the business owners, to be able to prove where your customer base is, that's really a compelling feature of Wayru. If you've got reps that are out there buying inventory and reselling it to others, you likely don't even have access to your end customer data. You don't know who they've sold it to, at what price, whether taxes were charged. You just don't have visibility to that, because once the rep buys it, it's out of your system. But with a reselling tool like Wayru, and the inventory sync and the data sync back to our Freedom back office. Now, when the rep goes out and resells any of these items, you suddenly get to see who did they sell it to. You can capture that customer information for marketing purposes, but also for compliance purposes. You can see who is the end user, the end consumer of the product that's being sold. And that shows more of the rep being the sell through versus the rep being the end customer. And that's a very different distinction for compliance purposes. So for those that have any kind of reselling or cash and carry, I would highly advise you to take a look at some of the tools, Wayru being one of them, that really give you visibility into the data of where your product is ending up, what the price points are that it's being sold, and so on. That can really make or break an audit type of situation when it comes to compliance and where your products are ending up.
Yeah, it's a great app, by the way, and as they begin to expand it into other languages and other markets, I think you're going to find this is a tool a lot of people are using. I do want to kind of point out one more thing that I didn't mention above. Dead dead times of communication will
Mm,
will drive churn. So let me give you an
gotcha.
example. I'm a customer. I order your product. Typically, it might take 7 to 10 days to get the product. What's happening in those 7 to 10 days? And for most companies, what's happening is absolutely nothing. But imagine if, and this is what I've always done called experiencing mapping, like mapping experience points, like Disney, they call it the wow factor. Their whole business is built around this. So imagine if the first thing they got when they put their order was a video from the owner saying, "We really want to welcome you to our community, our family. Here's what we're about." And the second is, "I see you ordered, this our energy product. Well, let me tell you a little bit about it." And then I could send testimonials about it.
Mhm.
What I want to do is I want to build excitement during dead times. And that's all done through communication and technology. So, really important
Yes.
to understand that part of it.
And,
So,
and if you're sorry, now that you've inspired me, I couldn't agree with you more. And if your tools are not allowing you to design an automated, repeatable process for that communication, then you are not going to keep up. You've got to find a way. I mean, with AI, with the various tools, I mean, the data, particularly in our system, the data that empowers the communication, like Gordon said, not just a "we hope you enjoy your purchase," but "hey Gordon, we saw that you ordered this specific product and here's what you need to know about it, here's how to use it, here's what you can look for, here's the results that you can start experiencing day one." Okay, if you don't have a smart tool that allows you to get to that point of specific content to the people who are engaging with you, you're really missing out because the tools are out there, the technology is out there. You just need to figure out a way to pair the right tools and the technology with your product, with your culture, with meeting your customers where they were already at. So definitely look into communication tools if that's not something that you're already aware of and working on.
yeah, so it's interesting you bring that up. I recently was told about an AI site called Clay, Clay. I wasn't familiar with it. Basically, what it does, it'll take any contact in my database and it will search everything in the public domain in call it the last week, and tell me everything they're talking about, everything they're focused on. Imagine the power of that when you're talking with somebody and when you have that information at your fingertips. So I think a lot of the things we're talking about are going to be improved through AI and technology, and tools like Wayru and ByDesign, who continue to evolve and innovate, are going to be leaders in that space. So next slide, please.
Yes.
So if you're changing a comp plan, this is an art, not a science. It is not easy, especially if times are down. But anytime I'm changing anything, this is the process I go through. So everything starts with identifying a problem, an analysis. And it could be as simple as we're losing, our sales are declining. Why is that? Um, we are we don't have any more profitability. What do we do to solve that? So with through analyzing something, you come to a point where it's like, okay, we got to make a change. Then becomes what I call the breakthrough or their commitment. And I heard a girl speak about this one time. I never forgot what she said. Her name was Sabine Tabukin. She built schools for the blind all over the world in third world countries. And she talked about the breakthrough is so important because it's the commitment. And what she said, I never forgot it, was you cannot fulfill a dream if the dream isn't big enough to work through the challenges. So the breakthrough is that commitment that no matter what, we're moving forward. I know we're going to have pushback from people. I know not everybody's going to agree. But if you don't make the commitment, what will happen as soon as you move toward a plan and executing, you're going to bail back because you're just not committed to the change. So once you are committed, you build that plan, you execute, you always measure everything. So if I have a plan, is it working? Where do I need to modify it? That's the recognition and reanalysis. And this is the cycle, and it never stops. And this is everything I've managed with change, I manage with this system, and it's worked very effectively. And all I can tell you is make sure you have a strong breakthrough and a commitment by your shareholders, your distributors, whoever it might be, because that's really going to be what makes the biggest difference. So next slide, please.
Yep. And this is where I'm going to jump in again and talk about tools. And, you know, with modeling and analyzing, which as Gordon said, is a continuous process. It's really important to understand, okay, now we've got the breakthrough. We know that something needs to change, but let's make sure that we know what that change is going to do before we actually roll it out, right? And I remember, when I was in your shoes working as an executive, 15 years ago, that meant sending your BI team away, and then 2 days from now, they'd come back with all the data on what that comp plan might look like and this and that. But again, with the evolution of tools, at ByDesign, we have modeling tools built into our GNC with genealogy and commission platform. So it allows you to go in at any time, make tweaks to the plan, change percentages, change minimum qualifications, change, all the little things that are flexible. And by the way, you have the ability to do this on your own. You can go in, play with the numbers, tweak something here or there, run it against your actual field production. Not production in a sense that it's going out live, but production as in the activity of your field. You can run that new comp plan against your field, your customer orders, your existing genealogies, and you can then do an A/B comparison to know exactly what changed. Okay? And this is so key because you're going to be able to find not only how it affects that top line of percentage payout, did it increase our payout, decrease our payout, but going back to the detailed data analytics, who is earning more? Who is earning less? Where are the potential pitfalls in the plan? Well, we solved one problem, but now we've created another one. And this does two very important things for you. And this is where my field training is going to come in. It's important to know this information to make the right decision. It's also important so that you can bring the field along with you. Having this kind of information, knowing that Jenny, who's been with me for 15 years, who's used to making X amount, is now suddenly going to earn 10% less. I need to go have a conversation with Jenny before I roll anything out because she's a brand ambassador for me. As an experienced leader who has built up the business, I need her to support these changes. I need her to get on board and help the rest of the field to get on board as well. So this kind of analytics allows you to have the conversations that you need. You can adjust your training, that onboarding that is so important. Maybe that needs to tweak based on this new plan. So I cannot emphasize enough how modeling can make a big difference between the success or failure on a change that you're rolling out.
Absolutely one of the most important pieces. So this is another thing I want to point out. So when we're talking about types of cultures, we talk about opportunity and customer centric, but there's also performance centric and experience centric, and all of them have their benefits and their risk. Um, like a performance culture, if you want to see what that looks like, go look up the Netflix culture deck. They have a detailed printout of how all that works. The danger in performance is burnouts and really psychological safety. People feel like they always have a gun to their head. And what have you done for me lately? Opportunity is really about more recruiting and growth, and the other's innovation in it, customers' needs and loyalty. But the experience part, in my opinion, is what drives it all. So if you think about engagement, it's a behavioral formula. Engagement is the triumph of hope over experience. So two variables, hope and experience. Generally, I would ask a group which one is most important. And I would say most people would tell me hope. So then I ask them, well, where does hope come from? Hope comes from the conclusions we make through experiences. So great companies understand that experience drives the entire process, and they pay attention to every experience and saying, are we getting people to think what we want and do what we want? And look at it this way. Experience, there's five things that matter in experience. It needs to be positive, it needs to be meaningful, it needs to create hope, it needs to confirm hope, and it needs to elevate hope. So if I use that kind of lens and I say, why does network marketing have a challenging um, reputation? I think it's pretty simple. We're as good as they get of any industry in the world at marketing hope, but we don't always commit to the level we need to, the standards we need to turn hope into reality. And that is the key to building something long term. So I spend a lot of time on like cultural, like what aspects of this I need to take out to build a really well-designed comp plan that can stand the test of time, especially with all the change. Okay, next slide, please. So does anybody have any questions?
And again, you can just unmute yourself if you've got any questions that you'd like to ask.
Okay. Then
Plain
let's
and
go
simple.
to, oh, okay. I got it.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So,
So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew how to reach us. If there was anything that we said today that sparked your interest, if you're curious to learn more about the app that we talked about or anything, these QR codes will take you directly where you need to get the information. Or, of course, you could just use the URLs there. But just wanted to make sure that everybody knew how to reach us for more information. And then finally, to wrap it up, Gordon, I'll let you take the last slide.
yeah. So I always like to thank people who attend webinars, and I try to do that by adding value with some useful information. So what I created was a 12-step roadmap. It's roughly a 16-page document. It goes through every stage, and in each stage, it tells you what questions you should be asking, what outcomes you should be looking for. I even shared at the end sort of the lessons I've learned, and on this cultural piece, the different cultures and a little bit more information. So if you are internally looking at making a change, I think you'll find this document very useful. And as a thank you for all of you that signed up and attended, ByDesign will be sending that out to everybody shortly. So
Perfect.
that's all I got. I want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day, and we look forward to chatting again soon.
All right. Perfect. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Bye bye.